Not even in the wildest version of what I imagined for this new Lakers era did I think we'd be sitting here breaking down an Anthony Davis trade scenario from the outside, asking one simple but brutal question. Does this move make sense for us now, as the franchise that chose Luka Doncic and moved on? This is Lakers News Fan Report. I'm here with you like always, talking directly to you one-on-one as a lifelong Laker locked into every angle. And in this video, I'm going to walk through what's really behind the latest Anthony Davis trade talk, how it reshapes the balance of power, and most importantly, what it means for the Lakers' path to a title. I'll break down Davis's situation in Dallas, why the Knicks and other contenders are being linked, how his health and contract factor in, how his presence in the East versus the West impacts us, and whether there is any universe where pivoting back toward Anthony Davis would make more sense than doubling down on Luka and the roster we're building. Stay with me until the end, because the answer is not as emotional, not as nostalgic, and not as obvious as some people want it to be. Let's start where we are, not where we used to be. The Lakers we're talking about today are not the 2020 bubble team. They're not the roster built around prime Anthony Davis as the unquestioned long-term anchor. This version of the franchise is built around Luka Doncic as the offensive engine, still powered by LeBron's presence in mind, framed by role players whose job is to defend, space, and make fast decisions. We've shifted from asking one star to do everything on both ends to building a structure that keeps a generational creator surrounded by length, shooting, and versatility. When we look at moves around the league now, the question is always the same. Does this help maximize Luka's window while respecting the new CBA reality and preserving flexibility when LeBron finally steps away? That's the filter. If a move fails that test, it doesn't matter how big the name is. Into that context drops the Anthony Davis situation in Dallas. After the historic swap that stunned the league and flipped Luka for AD, Davis arrived to be the centerpiece of a Mavericks team trying to reinvent itself. The idea was clear: give him a fresh environment, pair him with Kyrie, accelerate Cooper Flagg's development around a proven All-NBA big, and hope his two-way dominance holds through a deep run. On paper, nobody doubts what Anthony Davis is when healthy. Elite rim protection, switchability onto smaller players, touch in the post, mid-range scoring, lob threat, face-up game, still one of the very few bigs who can single-handedly raise your defensive ceiling to contender level. But reality has a say, and reality with AD has always included injuries, rhythm breaks, and questions about availability at the exact moments when you need reliability. Even early in this Dallas chapter, we've already seen the pattern. Flashes of dominance, then physical setbacks that force the staff to recalculate rotations and roles. Dallas comes out of the gate stumbling, dealing with health issues, trying to integrate a rookie and a pressure cooker, and suddenly all the familiar conversations return. Is building around Davis sustainable in 2025 and beyond? Is a retool the smarter path while he still has value? That's where the Knicks concept and other hypothetical destinations enter as theoretical solutions. Send Davis to a roster that thinks it's one superstar away, bring Dallas back wings, picks, depth, and a way out of a fragile construction. That idea is what set off the wave of what if that now reaches our timeline. And of course, whenever Anthony Davis's name hits the rumor cycle, the knee-jerk reaction from part of the fan base is, should the Lakers jump back in? But notice something important here. In the scenario seriously discussed by people plugged into front offices, the Lakers are not the ones throwing themselves back into the Anthony Davis market. And there are real basketball and business reasons for that. My job here is to walk through those reasons with full respect for what AD did in purple and gold, but without lying to you for clicks. First, the basketball fit. To bring Anthony Davis back into this version of the Lakers, you're talking about reattaching a high-usage, high-salary frontcourt star who needs touches in his spots, who is at his best when the system bends to accommodate his rhythm, into a team that has literally just restructured its identity around Luka Doncic's full-time control of the offense. Luka dictates pace, angles, matchups, spacing. Every possession runs through his read. The roster you're building around him needs vertical threats, 3-and-D wings, screen and dive bigs who can protect the rim, punish switches, and live without constant touches. Davis, at his peak, can do a lot of that, and that's why he's special. But he is not just another big. He shifts the gravity of your offense and your cap sheet. To justify paying his number and shaping your scheme around him again, you need him to be consistently available at near-peak form over an 82-game grind plus playoffs. That is exactly the part no team can guarantee anymore. With AD, durability and nightly availability are not theoretical talking points. They are the central variable. Second, the cost. Any serious attempt to trade for Anthony Davis now would require a significant outgoing package. Dallas is not gifting him away after the historic swap that stunned the league and flipped Luka for AD. You're talking about multiple rotation players, real draft assets, and probably key defensive pieces that currently make sense next to Luka. That means sacrificing depth, continuity, and optionality to reunite with a player you already moved on from in the boldest trade of the decade. Ask yourself calmly, does it make sense for the Lakers to reverse engineer that decision months later and reinvest heavily in a 32-year-old big with a documented history of missing stretches of crucial games when you have already secured the younger generational engine you were searching for? From a front office logic standpoint, that would be chaos. It would scream panic, nostalgia, and a lack of conviction in the very move that redefined your future. That's not how a serious contender behaves in this CBA environment. Now let's talk about the angles that make people even float this idea in good faith. From a pure talent lens, pairing Luka and Anthony Davis on the same team again, this time in Los Angeles, under a more stable structure, with LeBron's leadership and championship habits still present, sounds terrifying for the rest of the league. You can picture it. Luka orchestrating, AD erasing mistakes at the rim, inverted pick and rolls, lineups where you switch 1 through 5 and dare offenses to solve length and IQ. On a video game, absolutely you press accept, but the modern NBA is not played on 2K sliders. It's played under a punitive CBA with tax aprons that torch your flexibility if you stack too many huge deals without a pipeline of young, cheap contributors. Bringing Davis back would mean tying up an enormous percentage of your cap in 3 historically great but aging or injury-prone players while relying almost entirely on minimum contracts and late draft hits to fill the gaps. We've lived versions of that movie already. It looks glamorous until the first key injury hits in March and you're asking a vet minimum wing to play 36 playoff minutes because there is no middle class on the roster. There's also the strategic West-East factor that a lot of people forget in the emotion. If Anthony Davis stays in Dallas and that project somehow stabilizes, that's another West rival with a top-tier big you have to go through 4 times in a series. If he ends up in New York or another Eastern contender, his impact shifts out of your direct conference path.
Yes, it could potentially create a heavyweight finals opponent. But if your mindset as the Lakers is correct, you're not building to avoid great teams. You're building to meet them on the biggest stage. Having a complex, expensive AD experiment happening in the East instead of clogging your side of the bracket can actually simplify your route. From that angle, forcing your way into the bidding war doesn't just cost assets. It might actively make your journey harder by over-concentrating risk on your own roster instead of letting someone else absorb it. I also want to be clear about something from a cultural standpoint, because I know how emotional this conversation is for everyone who lived 2019-2024 with this team. Anthony Davis is a champion in Lakers history. He delivered an all-time playoff run in 2020, defended at a ridiculous level, took on matchups nobody wanted, and there is no banner in that season without him. That respect is non-negotiable. But building the next Lakers era cannot be about rewriting the past. It has to be about protecting the present core and future structure. The trade for Luka Doncic was a statement that this franchise is betting on a superstar whose timeline stretches beyond LeBron, whose offensive control and on-ball gravity give you a decade-level anchor to build around. Undoing that direction to chase a reunion with AD would send the exact opposite message, that the organization doesn't trust its own vision, that it is willing to spin in circles around familiar names. And if there is one thing contenders have in common, it's that they commit to their plan. They adjust at the edges, yes, but they don't jerk the wheel every time nostalgia trends. From the Dallas perspective, moving Davis in the right deal would be about rebalancing, flipping a fragile centerpiece into multiple reliable pieces, plus picks to grow with Cooper Flagg and whatever remains of their veteran group. For New York, or any other aggressive buyer, adding Anthony Davis in the right health context could be the kind of big swing that signals we're all in now, pairing his rim protection and versatility with existing stars. None of those motivations automatically translate to the Lakers must get involved. We are not in the same place of desperation or confusion. Our job, if we're thinking like a serious organization, is to look at situations like this and ask, how do we profit indirectly? How do we position ourselves to capitalize if Dallas resets, if a buyer overpays and locks themselves into a rigid core, if secondary players or picks shake loose that actually fit around Luka? That is where smart front office work lives, not in chasing the headline everyone expects us to chase. Let me paint one scenario for you that says a lot. Dallas eventually decides they have to explore the market hard. A desperate Eastern Conference team pushes in multiple firsts and rotation players. Davis lands in the East on a massive number, playing deep minutes in a physical conference under huge expectations. Meanwhile, the Lakers stay disciplined with Luka, keep competent depth, invest in internal development, and maintain room to maneuver on the margins. If that trade hits perfectly for the team that buys him, great, you deal with them in June. That's a good problem. If it doesn't, you've just watched another franchise lock itself into an aging, injury-sensitive core while you preserved assets and flexibility. In neither outcome does sending a Godfather offer to bring AD back emerge as the smart play for Los Angeles. Could there be a hyper-specific, low-cost version of an Anthony Davis return that makes sense down the line if his market collapses, his contract situation changes, his athletic load drops, and his role expectations adapt? In theory, yes. In the NBA, doors you think estão fechadas, às vezes se abrem de outra forma. If one day we're talking about a shorter deal, a reduced financial weight, a clearly defined secondary role next to Luka in a later phase of both their careers, supported by a deep roster, that's a different conversation. Then we'd be talking about value, not desperation. But that is not the scenario on the table when we discuss blockbuster proposals built on Dallas's current struggles. Right now, the version of an AD trade being floated requires a level of commitment, money, and structural risk that simply doesn't align with what the Lakers should be doing after finally landing a new generational lead. So here's my verdict, said in the most direct, professional way I can to you who accompany tudo, play-by-play, rumor by rumor. As things stand, an Anthony Davis trade does not make sense for the Los Angeles Lakers to pursue as buyers. What makes sense is to monitor, to understand how his movement might reshape competitors, to see if Dallas or another team's desperation creates secondary opportunities for us, a mispriced 3&D wing, a pick swap, a contract we can exploit, but not to flip our identity upside down for a reunion. Respect his legacy, acknowledge his greatness, always, but protect the structure you're building now. The central question for the Lakers is no longer how do we get Anthony Davis? It's how do we put the best possible, versatile, durable, defensively locked group around Luka and whatever version of LeBron we still have season after season. Any move that doesn't answer that clearly is just noise. Before I close, I want you in this discussion with me. Drop your thoughts in the comments. If there was a realistic path, would you even consider bringing Anthony Davis back at a heavy price? Or do you believe, like I do, that the right play is to let other teams gamble while we double down on our new core? Do you see any version of this trade idea that actually makes us better in May and June, not just louder in February? Would you rather watch another team take on that risk while we stay focused on building a deeper, tougher, more balanced team around Luka? Tell me where you stand, because this community sees through narratives faster than most of the national shows. From my side, I'm clear. The Lakers should act like the contender they aim to be. Disciplined, strategic, obsessed with fit and durability. Not like a franchise chasing familiar names just to feel something for 24 hours on social media. If you value this type of breakdown, built on information, context, and respect for your intelligence as a fan, stay close. This is Lakers News Fan Report, and here you're going to get updated news, serious rumors, and deep analysis on every move that touches our franchise. Make sure you're subscribed, turn on notifications, drop a like, share this video with that one Laker fan in your group chat already sending photoshops of AD back in purple and gold, and let's keep following this new era with passion and clarity. We asked the question, we studied the angles, and for now the answer is simple. Anthony Davis headlining another team's gamble might shape the league, but the Lakers' job is to make sure it never shakes the plan that finally looks like a real future.